Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. So, breaking into the world of television or any media industry can be an uphill battle, especially when you come from a foreign country. The challenges of adapting to a new culture, navigating different accents, and understanding local norms can make it seem like an impossible feat. But today, we have the privilege of welcoming someone who not only conquered these obstacles, but also left an indelible mark in the broadcasting landscape. A remarkable individual whose journey in the media industry is nothing short of awe inspiring. Hailing from India, she had always dreamed of having her own show, a platform where she could address societal issues that often remain unspoken. Little did she know that her path would lead her to become one of the chosen few from an India wide selection by Z News as a Z News anchor in 1999. Through her career, her voice and presence became synonyms with professionalism and captivating storytelling. As the Hindi proofreader and narrator of CBC's Gemini Award winning documentary, Canada, A People's History, she introduced audiences to the rich tapestry of Canada's diverse heritage. And then in 2002, she became the launching face of Omni 2 in Toronto and was offered to anchor news magazine show Badhai, which ran for 9 years and became one of the best talk shows in ethnic media in Ontario. And her journey extends beyond that. Let's learn more from her. Please welcome Geetika Bhardwaj.
Thank you so much, Guru Sees. That was a very kind introduction. Thank you so much. I'm humbled.
Of course. Well, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. So I'm going to start by asking you this question I ask some of my guests. Tell me, what's this one cultural aspect or tradition from your home country that you have managed to preserve and cherish still in Canada?
Cultural or traditional, you said, right?
Yeah.
Indian cooking. All my three boys love it.
Mm.
I have two 9 and 10-year-old, and my husband, who's actually Jewish.
Yeah.
We have dal roti,
Mm.
dal chawal, and saag paneer straight from
Yeah.
home, and achar with it,
Mm.
dahi bundi.
Okay.
These are our top things that we eat normally every week.
Okay. Okay. Well, all these things are kind of making me hungry now. But yeah. So, do you also like try to do the fusion cooking or something else, or is it like just the Indian cooking?
Yes, we do.
Mm.
So boys will celebrate Hindu festivals, but they're being raised as Jewish kids. But we do things both at home, like Hindu things, and like for example, they're going to an event,
Mm. Yeah.
and then they love wearing their kurtas,
Oh, okay.
so they'll do that. And they will. So in terms of cooking, yes, we will do fusion cooking close to Jewish festivals. Um, they will do something like that. For example, latkes. We prepare them for Passover, and we will make. I'll give it an Indian
Hmm.
twist with Indian spices in it.
Okay.
So, so it's kind of latkes slash potato pancake, but Indian
Hmm.
style.
Okay.
So something like that.
Okay. Okay. And do you make that conscious effort to instill the Hindi or Punjabi language in them, or no?
Gurasis, actually, during the pandemic, I realized. So I was doing all sorts of these little things like here and there, introducing them, making them realize that Mama is from India.
Yeah.
And so I'll do little things like I'll tell them Hindi stories, Hindi words that
Hmm.
match up. Like, for example, both Jewish and Hindu cultures, in our culture, we have festivals that are related to lights, festival of lights,
Hmm.
like Diwali is called
Yeah.
Festival of Lights, you know? So they will. So I started something called Ema Rights.
Hmm.
So the first word, as a mom, my first one was taught to say instead of Mama,
Hmm.
I taught him to say Ima. Ima is Ma in Jewish
Okay.
language. So, but if you actually write the word, it's E Ma. Ma bhi aanda hai ਉਹਦੇ
Yeah.
ਵਿੱਚ, है ना?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can hear the mother
Yeah.
Ma word, Hindi word also there. So that's why I named it as Ema Rights. I thought I'll start a blog and kind of
Hmm.
write about what we do as a
Hmm.
family to keep both cultures and traditions in the family. So yes, the effort and the want is to have both things going on.
Hmm.
So I do sometimes in summer vacation. So I'll give them myself Hindi classes. So
Hmm.
they had started like last summer. They had started writing their own name, Arjun,
Uh-huh.
in Hindi and Arav in
Okay.
Hindi. So they were able to recognize. But then, as it happens, when the school starts, you kind of forget things. But this summer again, I'm pounding it back again. Go back to Hindi,
Mm.
learn Hindi.
Okay, okay. Okay, well, that's great to hear. That's how I think you're kind of keeping your culture a little bit alive as well. So that's amazing.
Yeah, that's the only way. When we leave our country, we have to hold on to certain things that define us
Yeah.
as who we are,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Um, for example, when I came here, people used to recognize, oh my goodness, Geetika, your saris are amazing.
Mm.
And they always would get confused. My producer and my senior managers would say, people ask us, where is she from?
Mm.
Because my show was basically in Hindustani
Mhm.
and I'm fluent in Punjabi also. Because I was a standby Punjabi anchor at Z News also.
Mhm.
But so they would ask, her saris, they look like from Maharashtra, but some of them look like from South India or Andhra Pradesh or no, somewhere close to
Yeah.
Chandigarh, Delhi. So where is she from? And then my Bindi style would change.
Mm.
So I would sometimes just have a dot, sometimes a
Yeah.
dot with a line, and it would kind of. So this is what I tell people when they ask, "Oh, you're from India." No, no, no. Ask me. Continue asking me where exactly from India.
Yeah.
Because just being in India doesn't mean that
It's
that's your
huge.
definition.
Yeah.
So like it's so huge. Your cuisine, your dress, your festivities,
Yeah.
traditions,
Yeah.
your language, dialect, even the way, as I said, you put your bindi,
Yeah.
a dot on your forehead.
Absolutely.
It can vary depending upon where you're from.
Mhm.
So please ask me, where am I from? Not just India.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, Geetika, if not the news anchor or the show host or the work that you do, anything related to the media and broadcasting, what career you would have chosen if not these?
So I always wanted to be, first as a little girl, a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
Gurasis. I have never shared, I'm a very private person. I'm very introvert, even though I have done shows and been on TV and entered people's houses
Mm-hmm.
and talked about issues. But personally, I'm a very private person, never actually talked about it openly. My parents had a very tense marriage. So every day would be scary. So even as a like, for example, as a 5-year old,
Mm-hmm.
on several occasions I was told that in the morning, check on your mom. If you think she's not okay, you need to make sure you sneak out and get to the closest help because you have to make sure your little sister is fine too.
Mm-hmm.
So every day was a blessing and unpredictable. So never left my homework done undone till last minute. Always had my 4 or 5 toys close by
Mm-hmm.
and always was on alert. So I always thought as a little girl that if I change somebody's bad heart into a good heart, that would change the scenario, circumstances of
Yeah.
something, right? So I wanted to be a doctor. But very soon I realized that I actually can't see the sight of blood.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing. I didn't pass out in a surgery room. So that's good. And then sometime in late 80s, we all got CNN into our houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was early on when television was, life was, the media was getting imploded with all these international channels coming to our, not just Doordarshan happening.
Yeah.
So I noticed Oprah Winfrey.
Mm.
She was oh my goodness, like she talks about everything on her show. That
Yeah.
was a huge thing for me as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm brought up in a very progressive city,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chandigarh, but come from a very conservative family. All educated people in my family,
Mm-hmm.
but very traditional. So having somebody on TV in my room talk about issues that we wouldn't even think of talking about, right? So that was huge for me, and I wanted to have a show of my own. So I'm like,
Mm.
well, forget about being a
Yeah.
doctor. I cannot do that. But I want to, maybe this is a way. to talk about issues, to write about them, so you create awareness. This is what this woman seems to be doing,
Yeah.
finding solutions to problems. So that was an eye opener for me, and I really wanted to be doing something like that. So I was one of the youngest writers for a newsletter that was being published in Chandigarh, but being sent all the way to even
Mm-hmm.
Moscow and places like that. So I was the youngest writer, and I still remember the heading of that article in that newsletter was "Geetika ki diary ke panno se,"
Mm.
which
Interesting.
basically means in English translation, from the pages of Geetika's
Diary. Yeah.
diary, right?
Mm.
So I've always wanted to be a writer or a show host, but you said what else? I never thought about anything else other than maybe a teacher.
Mm.
I like being with the kids.
Okay.
I think sometimes you relive your own life when you have 10, 20, 30 kids around you.
Mm-hmm.
You can teach them, you can listen to them so much,
Mm.
and you can learn from them so much. It's such a beautiful, I think, profession
Mm-hmm.
where you have so much power in the sense that you basically shaping these kids. They're
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
spending as much time with their parents Monday to Friday as much as you are. You're so lucky
Mm. Yeah.
to influence and shape these 30 or 20 kids. So that is very fascinating. I think I probably would have been a teacher if
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
else.
Well, I can definitely see the teacher in you. I think that would be a great profession for you as well. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, I want to talk a little, circle back again a little bit about your, childhood. Tell me how that experience or that has influenced, like, since you are now a mother yourself. So tell me that how that thing has somehow shaped the way you are gonna pursue this motherhood.
I am still learning. I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning. As I said, they're 9 and 10, but my focus is always to say respect every human being around you.
Mhm.
Um, always know that a woman, a man, older, younger, everybody has their own perspective
Mhm.
on the same issue
Mhm. Yeah.
and how they've been raised, what their life experiences have been. This all influences that personality.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that that's who that person is
Yeah.
because they are also learning, right?
Mhm.
We are all learning.
You're all a work in progress.
We are all work in progress.
Yeah.
And you can't say, oh, and sometimes it happens, Gurasies, that you meet somebody after 10, 15 years and you think like, oh my God, this person is so changed.
Mm. Yeah.
So as long as you have core personality intact,
Mhm.
don't lose on goodness, do good, and then don't worry about how the other person is reacting because you can't change the other person. You can
Yeah.
only work on yourself.
Mhm.
This is sometimes they are 9 and 10 and sometimes they tell me, Mama, you did this wrong. Do you know that? You should probably apologize. I said, you know what?
Mm.
This is so funny that we couldn't have said that to our parents,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even now, even now,
Mm.
we can't do that. But this is such a great thing that if I did something wrong, that I can apologize to my little child,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
say, I'm sorry about it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Or how would you want me to do this or say something about this? Like, you take their opinion from their mind, right? It
Yeah.
is so amazing. I love that.
Yeah. It is beautiful. Yeah. Tell me, even in terms of, expressing the emotions, like, I don't think so. My parents have never said to me that, the word I love you. Yes, they do. I can see that in their actions and everything, but they never said it. But sometimes saying that also makes a big difference. How do you see that?
Oh my goodness, totally. I was actually looking at a TikTok the other day, and in that they were showing that we say it, I love you, and buy things for the kids these days. All the time we have to tell them. Whereas for our parents, they're like, you know what? We put you in good schools, we're taking care of you, washing your laundry, giving you food. Isn't that love? Why do I have to say it in words? And
Yeah.
then me and my husband were having an argument about it, a discussion kind of. So I'm like, I come from a very different culture.
Hmm.
So, for example, here for every little thing, you hear thank you.
Yeah.
है ना?
Yeah.
But in India, we don't hear thank you.
Yeah.
It's taken for granted.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I, for example, say tons of times, I've learned it, as I said, over the last several years, that I say thank you for even somebody picked up the book at home, or
Hmm.
he did something like maybe just put the curtains if the light was too strong.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
right? We don't do that.
Mhm.
So that's just a cultural thing, but it doesn't mean that we are not thankful about it
Yeah.
for the actions that people do around us. We just don't say, we are very loving people, actually.
Absolutely.
We are
Yeah.
very warm hearted people.
Hmm.
We invite anybody at any time. This morning, only, for example, I was telling my kids that nobody gives a call or pre plans, especially when I was growing up.
Hmm.
And even now, when I talk to my friends back home, very rarely people plan. And you
Hmm.
can correct me if I'm wrong,
100%. Yeah.
Gurati, that people just say, you know what, I was in your neighborhood or I was passing by and I wanted to see you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if it happens to be tea time, we are happy to have that person in. And then if it is lunchtime, we'll prepare something extra right away. And it's just in our nature.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
Welcome
Yeah.
everybody anytime,
Yeah, it happened like,
right?
like our uncles and aunts and masis and buas, they'll be passing by and they said, oh, we were just passing by, we just stopped by. And sometimes we would be having dinner and they'll just join us, have dinner with us, or they'll just pop up at any time.
Oh my goodness, relatives. I don't think to relatives we can even say that. I was just talking about people. Relatives are, yes, of course, you
Yeah.
have to be available.
Yeah.
But yeah, but even for like just friends and acquaintances, if they happen to be
Around.
in your
Yeah.
area, they can knock on your door.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of childhood and all that, tell me if you could go back and relive, one moment from your childhood in Chandigarh, which moment it would be and why?
Oh no, that's a very tough question. I don't think I want to revisit.
Okay.
It's been a very tough child.
Mm-hmm.
But things that I've done, I do cherish them. Like no matter what was going on in the personal life
Mm-hmm.
at home, but I always made sure that I am doing best what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
For example, throughout my schooling, Gracies, I was head prefect, class leader, always took part in debates, declamations, extempore,
Mm-hmm.
and always got a prize. So that was my way of, I guess, contributing as a person, even though the atmosphere may be very
Yeah.
chaotic and unpredictable. But that was my way of moving forward.
Mm.
Thing I've learned even now, as a new immigrant.
Mhm.
Can you imagine, like when I came here, I immigrated in an independent category as a broadcaster, and I was doing international news on Z News. So people in like everywhere watched that
Mhm.
news bulletin
Yeah.
around the world. My mom was a research analyst, and my sister had just won Saregama,
Mm.
both in Punjabi and Hindi. So she
Oh,
was
wow.
hoping to become a playback singer. So all these, we were at that point in our lives. And then we packed our bags and came here. My mother came as a research analyst. My sister was a dependent on her at that age.
Mhm.
And so they came separately and I followed them.
Mm.
But the moment we land here, we don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And we don't know what job search looks like.
Mm.
So somebody who had found the house for my mom and my sister, they said, oh, it's outskirts of Toronto. But it was Hamilton, not knowing it. Hamilton is a different city.
Mm. Yeah.
So to get out of that and actually to be in Toronto would be another journey, right? But so here we are with research analyst
Yeah.
and international news anchor, a Saregama finalist, and now what do we do?
Yeah.
I worked in a mushroom farm.
Mm.
I was the shortest petite security guard,
Mm.
and I did evening courses just to add up onto my media professional background at McMaster, and kept sending my resumes,
Mhm.
no matter what, how bad it looked on certain days. Kept sending my resumes, followed up multiple number of times, and I guess that persistence and timing, I would also say, helped. So in less than a year, so in September 2002, yeah, in less than a
Mhm.
year, I was on television.
Mm.
So I think that always moving forward, no matter what, as I've learned in my life, each step, as long as it is moving forward, how small it is and how slow it is, doesn't matter at all.
Hmm.
Because eventually you will reach the destination. May take you longer.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel, oh my God, if I was worldly wise, if I had a mentor, or if I was smart enough, I would have reached that destination much faster.
Yeah.
But you know what? I had my own journey.
Yeah.
I was very naive. I wasn't ready for the industry called media. I've learned things. Um, I've done stupid mistakes. But you know what? That's my journey.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
learning experience.
Yeah, 100%. I think everybody's journey is unique to themselves. And I think it happens as per their experiences. And some things I think happen in their life because they really have to learn from it that can benefit in the later years of their life. So I think all those ups and downs and obstacles kind of prepare you for the bigger thing, which we don't realize in that moment. But eventually you'll see that all that accumulates together and helps you to really conquer the next thing.
No, you're right. And everybody is different, Gurasis. I am who I am.
Yeah.
I just cannot help not trusting people. Sometimes I lose my common sense. I doubt myself. I'm like, why did I not use my common sense? But that's who I am. I trust people because I'm thinking if I am good, the other person in front of me is also good.
Yeah.
So sometimes it doesn't work out. But you know what? Um, just because things were not good or people were not good doesn't mean that I'm going to change myself.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm still the same.
Yeah. I think I read this quote also that never stop being a good person because of a bad encounter. And that stayed with me when I moved to Canada because you do come across all kinds of people, but I think I never lost my nature just because the other person was not reciprocating the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I tell my boys sometimes they're very little right now, but sometimes these things stay in your memory for long. That as boys, your journey will be different.
Hmm.
But always look for good people, and your gut feel hopefully will help you. And that if somebody is bad,
Hmm.
don't react the same way.
Yeah.
Move away from the situation.
Yeah.
That's the best,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But you cannot let other things impact you. You have to. But again, Guru says this is not just happening to me. I'm not just learning this right now. It's taken me a long
Of
time to learn
course. Yeah.
all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good to be able to share with my kids or people who are younger than me, or sometimes just friends.
Hmm.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good to learn from anybody of any age.
Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me of this one situation where I was coming out of the metro. It was my very first presentation in Canada, like in my school. I came out of the metro. I'm walking towards my school. It was like a 2 minute walk, and I just passed a lady, and she shouted at me, "I hate your turban! Like, go back to India!" She just shouted at me, and I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And I turned back and I looked at her, and I saw her, and I was like, there is no way I can explain her or say her anything that's gonna justify this. So I don't know, for some reason, this statement came to my mind that this lady has some loose screws, just move on. Something just kicked in me, and I moved on. And I don't know what happened, Yitika. That whole situation just fueled me in some way that my presentation was one of my best presentations in the class. And I don't know what just happened there. What was that magic? What was that something that got into me, and I had the amazing presentation in the class.
I am sorry that it happened. I love the way you're wearing your turban, Gurisis. We are all very amazing people.
Yeah,
Whatever culture, whatever tradition we bring, this is a
100%. Yeah,
country of immigrants. Just a reminder to everybody.
yeah,
Um, it's a land of immigration, land of immigrants.
yeah,
But I think what you're saying is that you did best in that class was because probably, you know, I always think that um, criticism sometimes doesn't bum you out. Sometimes it helps you.
yeah, 100%.
That's why we say, give me your critical feedback.
Hmm.
So it's okay. Somebody said something, but you probably thought, you know what, I'm going to make myself shine today,
100%.
right,
Yeah.
in my presentation.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it was a blessing in disguise. She probably pushed you to bring the best out of you. So,
Yeah.
and when people react like that, I always think it is not about me or what that person delivered in words to me. It is
Mhm.
actually about them. Maybe they need help. It's something they're feeling insecure about. They're feeling bad about something. So probably that person
Yeah.
actually needs help, right?
Absolutely. I think at that moment I didn't really know how to process it, and maybe it got translated into the
Yes.
presentation. But I think now I can gauge, whether to really take this personally or just bounce it off. It's absolutely okay. Okay, I think we should talk more about you now, more about your journey in Canada. But before that, I would like to go back once again in India, where you got selected. You were one of the top 11 candidates for the Z News. And you were also trained
Hmm.
for the whole experience, right? Before you actually was sent live. I want to tell us a little bit about that training phase and how that experience was like.
Oh, that was a wonderful experience, not fully utilized, as I said, was not, I think, prepared for it.
Hmm.
Um, but when you say you have to be prepared when the opportunity arrives, I've been thinking about it. I want to be on television, do a host of my own.
Yeah.
And so my mother heard that I just finished my master's. I was at a stage in life where I didn't know what will happen next. That's another story, another episode for you guys. So I heard, my mom heard that Z was looking for VJs, anchors, and faces for their Z cinema, and they were actually close to last rounds of selection, but they were doing their last interviews in
Hmm.
Chandigarh. So she said, "Why don't you apply and try entering?" So I sent my resume and my picture, and I was called. That's what happened, and I was myself surprised. But yeah, I was selected, and I think I was, if I don't recall it wrong, I was the only one selected for both Cinema and Delhi for news anchorship.
Hmm.
So I always wanted to be a anchor, have a show of my own. So I declined going to Bombay, and I said yes to Noida training.
Hmm.
So it was an amazing training. We were taught how to look on screen, how to dress, how to sit properly,
Hmm.
um, how to deliver speech, what to say, what not to say when you're on television, how to do your makeup, how to write down your questions
Hmm.
discreetly on screen,
Yeah.
how to do research for your topic.
Hmm.
This was all taught. This was on job training. So we would spend some time of the day in newsroom where all the other experienced people would be working, and you get to see them live in action. This was an opportunity, I think, that doesn't come to everybody, right?
Yeah.
You dream of going on national television, but it doesn't happen to everybody. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity, for Z chairperson and the management team. Always grateful about that.
But why do you say that you would have made a better use of the opportunity? Why would you say that?
I think if I had a mentor, for example,
Hmm.
I knew exactly how to take this step further up,
Hmm.
right? That would have been an amazing thing. Just like
Hmm.
um, that's what I always say, that when you have a destination in mind, then you can actually carve out some of your steps. You may need help sometimes to maneuver,
Hmm.
but you need to have a destination. So you can take different paths,
Yeah.
whichever way comes easy to you, or you think that is the
Hmm.
fastest or the best way.
Yeah.
That's yeah. But if you know where you're going, it becomes much more clear.
Hmm. Yeah. Tell me, is there like a story or a feedback that you received from a viewer, of that news show, or maybe like were people actually recognizing you on the street? Was that happening?
So I'm not sure about that back home, but yes, for sure. It's been everybody who sees me on street or in a store,
Hmm.
and they come up to me and say, um, "Are you Geetika from TV from Badhai ho? Really?" you look so different because television actually accentuates
Mm.
your personality. You look taller, bigger, right? And when they see me in person without makeup and anything, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so petite, same girl." So it's funny. Sometimes I can get away with this, saying, "Oh no, don't worry, I just resemble her."
Mhm.
So that's funny as well. But talking about India, that to be honest, I actually don't have clear memory of my shopping trips in India. Was I recognized? I'm sure I was, but it's a different environment there, right? For example, there when we would go and do some shopping, because you're being escorted as a news anchor, you're the national news anchor,
Yeah.
right? So you're being escorted. There's a car and somebody escorting you to go to a sari store. Here, nobody
No.
cares. I'm going for grocery shopping to, yeah, any grocery store.
Hmm.
So it's different.
Yeah. So that's like one of the differences you just shared. Are there anything else, any other differences that you would like to share with us?
I remember in India when I got the job on Z News, I came back the first time back to Chandigarh. Somebody told my mom, "Oh my God, Geetika can just put on a press on her scooter,
Mm.
right? And then nobody will stop her, you know? And then just put something like Z News on your house. Nobody will say anything.
Mm.
She's a big shot. You don't hassle a reporter
Yeah.
or somebody from that high profile. So when you come here, and we were laughing at it, that I've come here as as an international news anchor. Look what I'm doing:
Mm.
mushroom farming. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So sometimes we go from high level positions and we come to this country thinking of things that we just imagine or read, right? And we think, oh, life is beautiful. It's
Mm.
just a rose bush there. But sometimes it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
In reality, all immigrants, I think, have their own story to tell.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think we all immigrants in Canada have is persistence.
Mm.
We are dreamers. We are very
100%.
hopeful people. We do not give up, right?
Yeah.
We are not giver uppers. So that's one thing that I think binds all of us together. We also complain less
Mm.
because we know we are the ones who have to make it work for ourselves. So we just look for something that will work, right? Positivity.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah.
You are an example of that.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you for saying that. But I think there's like a variety of people. I've seen a few people that who don't really like appreciate this opportunity that they have got to come to Canada, and then there are people who actually make the full use of it. And I think we really have to learn from the one who actually made the use of it. And sometimes I've seen people complaining at the things where they knew what they were signing up to. I feel like. Uh, like for example, coming to Canada, they knew that they were going to do their chores themselves, they knew that they were going to cook for themselves, they knew that life is not all roses there. So I think they just forget that they had to change their mindset a little bit to actually succeed in this new world.
Sometimes it happens, yeah, even back home or wherever you are.
Yeah.
If you dream or think or and you don't get it, our I think mind and our nature as a human being is we feel dejected and it's like, oh, it's not working, I'm going to give up, because
Hmm.
giving up is much easier, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But to keep telling yourself that no, I'm going to make it work.
Hmm.
It needs hard work. It needs strong will, strength in you. It's just about you. You have to fight that battle.
Absolutely.
And it's not easy just doing it on your own. For example, even coming back I'm trying to start my own podcast and do stories because I've been in hibernation as a mom for many years now. um, it's a step that I had to like really feel within me and think, do I really want to do it? It's not going to be easy. Nobody's launching me
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
time. It's going to be just me doing on the camera and behind camera work.
Hmm.
So I had to really feel and push myself. So if you don't do that, nothing's going to be easy.
So let me take you back to 2001 again. That was the time when you landed in Canada. Tell me, like, I remember I read somewhere that you said that your educational background and professional experience had no meaning to the potential employers here. And that was the first time you heard about the term, no Canadian experience. That was like the gap on your resume. And then I also read this one anecdote where you walked to a local news station in a sari. So tell me about that whole experience and what happened next.
So when we came, it was October. When I came, it was October and 2001. And I remember very clearly, when you bring your currency from India and convert it into Canadian dollars,
Yeah.
it doesn't look very good. I don't know what happens these days, but 20 years back, it didn't look very good. So, which means that you have to start thinking about paying your bills
Yeah.
right away. Very first week, I remember very clearly that I didn't know how to dress up for a job interview. I was international news anchor, so I had a beautiful collection of saris, and I wore my sari and walked, which was luckily very close by, 10-minute walk to the news channel there. So I walked and gave my resume, introduced myself to the receptionist, and gave my resume and said the letter and the cover letter has been addressed to the news director.
Hmm.
But I had done my research on computer the same week, only after coming to Canada. They were very kind because the resume must have looked like, wow, international news anchor, what is she doing
Mm.
here? Right?
Yeah.
So they were very kind and invited me for an interview. So I remember very few days back, actually, I was reminding, and we were talking with the person, and I reminded that he actually asked me, the news director, that do you know what's on the left side of the street and what's on the right side of the
Mm.
street? And I did not know. But I was so keen on presenting myself and saying that, you know what, you guys should definitely hire me as a reporter.
Mm.
Like I was so strong about that, that I knew that I wanted to be a reporter. So, because I have a lot of
Yeah.
experience. So he said, but if you don't know what's on the left side or the right side, how will you go and do any news coverage? Well,
Mm.
first of all, you're very fresh. Why don't you settle down, see how it
Mm.
is, and then we'll circle back and talk about it. So I thought, okay. And, but I kept updating. I was not also, Gurasis, ashamed
Mhm.
or embarrassed, or maybe this was my
Mhm.
naiveness, that I was not scared or embarrassed to update what I am doing now. So
Mm.
I actually wrote him after a few days. Obviously, I thanked, but I kept him updated on this is what I'm doing right
Mhm.
now. I am doing a security guard
Yeah.
position, also taking media consultancy course at the local university. But that I am still looking for a position, and
Mm.
I am reading the map.
Yeah.
So So I did that job too.
Mm.
So I was reading the map. I was getting familiar with the streets around, reading the newspaper every day, local news.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking maybe the persistence and that may have been a factor that he finally introduced me. But I also sent the same week. So this is the funny part, that I was also sending my resumes to wherever I thought around that area. News channels were looking for anchors or any entry level position.
Mhm.
I would keep sending my resume. So the same week that I got a call from him saying that, you know what, I think I can refer you to somebody. I don't have anything for you, but I think I'm going to refer you. The
Mhm.
same week, I got a call from CFMT. In those days, Omni channel was called CFMT.
Mhm.
I got a call saying, we would like to interview you. I also got referred, but I went for the interview. And
Mhm.
again, I was so confident in what I wanted to do and present myself
Yeah.
so eloquently, like this is what I plan to do, this is what I want to do, and I'm very prepared for it.
Mhm.
I was interviewed, and I was told that we are actually auditioning for Bollywood Boulevard,
Mm.
and it was an English language news magazine show, entertainment show. So all the news is coming straight from Bombay. They in the show. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it's a entertainment news show, but the stories are coming all the way from Bombay and wherever
Mhm.
from India,
Okay.
and they talk about that, have local artists and talk about it. So I was not selected. I was very happy, to be honest. But the managers, they seemed impressed. They said, we'll keep you in mind. I didn't lose hope. I was sad, but I didn't lose hope. But I was also happy that I wasn't doing that show. But I came back because I had it in my mind that I wanted to do a Hindi language news magazine show.
Hmm.
I was very certain. I was very certain about
Yeah.
it. So within few weeks, I got another call from them saying we're doing this CBC Gemini award-winning 32-part series in different languages. I think 8 languages they did, and that would you be available to proofread it and narrate it? So proofreading meant that it was typed by somebody else. I had to proofread that,
Hmm.
and you can imagine 32 1 hour long episodes.
Yeah.
How much work was that? So so I had to redo most of the episodes, but because I didn't have the technical skill set to type it on computer, I hand wrote
Hmm.
32 episodes. I still have the
Wow.
copies of them. So 1 hour long, 32 episodes. They're all handwritten in Hindi. Uh, so when they said, "Are you done?" And I was the first one out of all the languages. I said, "Yes, I'm done."
Hmm.
So I took it. So they were literally scrolling the page and saying, "Did you handwrite it?" So I'm like, "Yeah, this is my handwriting.
Yeah.
I did it." So that was pretty impressive, I think. And
Oh yeah.
so I narrated it, and it was also the first translated version that was put on air.
Yeah.
It was finished, I think, in less than 2 months, and that was my first hello to Canadians here, and it was an amazing, the most wonderful experience of my broadcasting career ever. I think I
Hmm.
loved it. What way could have been the best way to learn more about the country that I had immigrated to?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I would stay in the editing booth non-stop. I did not need any washroom breaks, water breaks, or food break. I think my editors were like, okay, get her out. This is too much.
How long did it take to narrate those 32 episodes?
So I think we recorded it in less than 2 months.
Oh wow, but it's still a long time.
And I was traveling from Hamilton to Toronto
Hmm.
every day, Monday to Friday.
Wow.
And then yeah, so it was beautiful. I will never forget that experience. It was lovely, and so thankful to Omni for that opportunity. Um, and I completely fell in love with Canada.
Hmm.
It was so beautiful.
I'm sure there must be things that you narrated that you had no idea about, because sometimes there are some things in the history you were like, oh my God, is this where this comes from? Or this is what has happened?
It was all new to me. I had not read about Canada in detail. Who reads about Canada as a subject back home,
Yeah.
right? So we all want to immigrate to, but we don't have this kind of information available
Hmm.
or research. So one thing that I think always amazed people in at the station was who were part of the documentary translation work was that I would check the name
Hmm.
because they're French names, right?
Yeah.
I cannot pronounce them right.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm not a French speaking person. So I would always check the name and then deliver it. And they always would say, even while doing my Badhai Ho show,
Hmm.
why do you have to make sure? Why are you calling the embassy or the consulate office to check this name or listening to it somewhere else? Because this is, so you said, do you remember anything that you were taught while on job training?
Yeah.
In so because you're doing a newscast, you can't say wrong names.
Yeah.
One thing I learned, definitely learn to pronounce the other person's name.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't feel ashamed when people call me Geeta, uh, s- Geetika.
Hmm.
It's like I prefer to not let them keep doing that. It's better to correct it
Hmm.
politely so that you
Yeah.
don't. It's a good idea to correct,
Yeah.
right? They don't know how your name is pronounced. So I always did that. And that was, I think, one thing that everybody noted that how come the names are always pronounced right? Um, Even to my boys, I say, make sure when the other person is getting introduced, because your name is not a foreign name, it's Arjun.
Hmm.
It's like everybody should know how to pronounce that name.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do for the other person.
Yeah. Exactly.
They feel good when you've taken time to know their name, right?
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I learned. And good research. Just don't go jump up on the topic just because um, you are talking about it.
Hmm.
It's good to do some research. Always helpful.
Yeah.
And then I took an offer to be a communication advisor in a political office. So I worked. So it was interesting. It was another learning experience because now I was on the other side of the fence, right?
Mm,
Not just covering a minister or
absolutely. Yeah.
bureaucrats or or political people and questioning them, but now I was on the other side thinking that, oh, what looks like easy is not easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research that goes into one policy.
Absolutely.
There are tons of people who are worried about if this goes wrong, what will happen?
Mm,
If this goes right, what will happen? What needs to be done,
yeah.
right? So when we comment on political leaders, this is one thing that I learned during my experience there. When we comment on leaders, first thing is go vote.
Mm,
Then you can say something. If you have not gone out to vote, do not say anything. First point. Then you don't have the right to say anything, right?
mm,
If you haven't exercised
makes
your
sense.
voting
Yeah.
right. And secondly, I always think when we are having our own families, 4 or 5 people or 7 or 12 people, we have arguments. We don't all have the same perspective or thinking on the same subject. We differ. We will make mistakes,
Hmm.
right? Um, But when somebody is managing a province, a district, country, you can't just blame them all the time.
Hmm.
There has to be a balance, right? You also have to see what was happening during their term. What all did they do?
Hmm.
Weigh it. Just because we have an opinion on someone, we can't just throw our opinion on that. And it's not an easy job to be a politician of any level. Um, I just did a podcast on 3 levels of government where I actually asked a sitting member that when people walk into your office, do they even understand what responsibilities fall into which category and who is responsible for them,
Hmm.
for example,
Yeah.
right? We just, because for me, you are the elected person, you better know. I have a problem, find a solution, right? For us, it's like, yeah, I have a problem, find a solution, because just like what we do at our home,
Mm,
we'll say to the senior member in our house that, you know what, I have a problem, find the solution. Or
hmm.
why don't you have a solution? It's a very normal way to approach. But every responsibility falls into different category, and there's always a way to find a solution.
Hmm.
I just believe that there's always a solution for every problem. It may be difficult, non-convenient all the time,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not the way that feels right to you or very easy for you.
Hmm.
It may hurt your ego,
Yeah.
self-importance, but there's always a way to make it work.
I feel like whenever if a problem is created, it's created because it has a solution. Always. You just have to find and navigate to it.
Yeah, I don't like people who just kind of blame the leader or
Hmm.
whoever, because it feels to me like a family member who hasn't done anything but will blame somebody who's doing,
Because it's easy to do
because
that.
it's easy, right?
Yeah. It's easy
Yeah.
to blame.
So
Yeah.
if you're not going to participate,
Hmm.
or if you're not going to do anything, then maybe don't find faults in people who are actually doing. Because also another thing to remember, Aggressive, is when you do work, you will make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the nature of doing work, right? Because if you don't walk, how will you fall?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
If you're just sitting and complaining of the other person walking and falling because that other person is walking.
Yeah. At least the person is trying.
Yeah. So I just feel like we live in another democracy here. So
Hmm.
I think if you want to have a comment on something, then you know what? Go and get involved with your local riding associations. And this is a message for everybody,
Hmm.
young people, immigrants, families, seniors. Go and participate.
So, Geetika, I also want to talk a little bit more about Badhai Ho. And I want to give a little bit of background again to the listeners. So you became the launching face of Omni 2 in Toronto and was offered to anchor news magazine show Badhai Ho, which ran for 9 years. And I think hosting a successful show for 9 years is not a small deal. Then also, like I was telling earlier, that it became one of the best talk shows in ethnic media in Ontario. I want to tell us the inception of that idea. How did that come up? So I also found few of the clips. I was able to find them somehow on YouTube. And by the way, you were looking beautiful in all of those. And you have interviewed, I think, the people from various domains. There were like authors, there was event organizers. I also saw like few of the Indian chefs who visited Canada, and everybody who has contributed to the cultural fabric of Canada. So tell us more about that show and that whole journey.
Gurisis, as I said, my idea to the hiring committee was at Omni was like, I want to be able to do a show where I can say hello
Mhm.
and be my authentic self.
Yeah,
I can't do a show and just be put up in a studio just because you're bringing stories for me to air and I just want to say it on camera and
yeah.
look good. But my whole thing was, you know what? I'm already not having a great time. My credentials from back home are not being
Yeah.
recognized at all. So, if I'm going to go back to my broadcasting career, then this is how I want to do it. I want to be myself. I just
Hmm.
cannot be not myself. Um, so, being able to write my script in Hindi,
Hmm.
have a say in choosing
Yeah.
stories, interviewing people, being able to wear the dress that I love the most,
Yeah.
saris, my cotton saris, I miss wearing them. Um, Putting on a bindi and being able to portray myself. I did not. There was nobody saying, "Okay, you can't say this thing because this doesn't look right. We have a script for you. That's what you're going to
Hmm.
follow." Um, I was given a lot of flexibility in because I think they trusted me, and I really, really appreciate the team members there for trusting me. That I was generally myself,
Hmm.
and for that, I think it was one of the reasons I think people would say, okay, you know what, this is somebody we would just meet on street, right?
Hmm.
This is not somebody that doesn't look like us.
Hmm.
She's talking the way we miss listening to things because we've been here for so long, and she's fresh from India.
Hmm.
The diction is so fresh, and she seems to be representing whole of India. As I said, my
Absolutely.
saris would confuse people. Sometimes my saris would confuse people. My bindi style would confuse people. My language was not just one dialect, like only from Chandigarh only, or
Hmm.
from Delhi Hindi, or no Maharashtrian Hindi. It was like, it was kind of, as I said, the word Hindustani is
Yeah.
true. I think when people wrote back that she speaks pure Hindustani, so we can't figure out where she's from. So whoever would come in the studio, if there's a Bengali guest, they would think that they're talking to me because they think I'm probably from Bengal. Or a Maharashtrian guest, they're thinking probably she's from Maharashtra. Or Punjabi, are you Punjabi, Gitika?
Yeah.
It kind of helped me, I think, because I looked like them
Hmm.
from wherever, whichever part of India they were coming from. So that
Hmm.
must have been a contributing factor for everybody liking me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure about that. When I was seeing those videos, when that music kicks in and then it pans towards you, the camera, and then you do the introduction. For some reason, like I think I haven't seen it before, right? Ever. For some reason, when I saw it, it just made me feel so proud. I was so proud to just see you speaking the Hindi language. Like, I can't fathom the fact that it was uh, broadcasted on a Canadian television. People were looking at it, people were seeing it. It was something was there in me. I was like, oh my god, I was so proud to just see what was just right there.
Oh, thank you.
But also, once again, like, Gitika, once again, like, 9 years, that's huge. Tell me, what do you believe were the key factors that contributed to the show's popularity and sustained success throughout these years?
So I think, as I said, the show was basically about everyday life, everyday people.
Yeah.
Um, stories that were successful, stories that were struggling, stories that were failing.
Hmm.
We did not make up anything.
Hmm.
It was, we would actually just walk into people's homes and give a call and say, would you be interested? And let us cover your story. And people were very authentic. I think, Gurasi's, as I said, when you are being honest and trusting, sometimes the other person feels that, you know what, they can be also honest and just be
Hmm.
themselves. So I think it was a show where nothing seemed like uh, pre-done and directed or scripted. It was just how people were. No,
Hmm.
so that, I think that was the essence
Hmm.
of that show. And I'm sure me being honest and me being just myself may have also helped it. But yeah, the show was very casual show. And most times, for example, like we would have a story fixed and then say, okay, this is the time slot we're coming. But I'm going uh, without makeup with my camera person, just entering somebody's house
Hmm.
and chit chatting. So, what
Yeah.
people generally, I think, miss is um, sharing their story the way they think and talk about to themselves about it,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes that authenticity is what kind of becomes the,
Setting point.
yeah, beautiful thing of that whole
Yeah.
talk.
For the non Indians, the word Badhai means congratulations.
Yes.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content and conversations we bring to you every week, we would love for you to join our growing community. Make sure to follow us on all major podcast directories, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcast. That way, you'll never miss an episode and you'll always stay in the loop with the latest insights and stories. And speaking of staying connected, I always encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is My Thick Accent. We'll be sharing a lot more behind the scenes content, some updates, and some even fun sneak peeks. So give us a follow and let's engage even more closely there. And to all those who provided their feedback and input, thank you so much. It truly shaped the direction of our podcast. And I would love to hear from any of the new folks who joined us today. Don't hesitate to reach out with any thoughts, ideas, or even suggestions for future guests. Drop us an email at hello@mythickaccent.com. Now let's get back to the episode. So tell me if any of our listeners who would like to get into the similar industry, what can they do or what would be their next steps if any of them wants to get into it?
I think the best, there's such great universities here in Ontario. Ryerson is great. They have an amazing program. I was one of the scholarship recipients of Ryerson's
Hmm.
accelerated program on comms and media. And I think there were 7 candidates across Canada, and I was one
Hmm.
of them. So we were given 1 week training and workshops and seminars. It was an amazing experience. And I realized, my goodness, kids and students who are going through the actual program at
Yeah.
Ryerson is such lucky fellows. So there's such great programs at Seneca, our local universities and colleges. York has programs. As long as you know, as I always say, the destination, what you exactly want to do, the path becomes much easier then. And then
Hmm.
always look, keep your eyes open. Nobody told me this. I also didn't have great, I think, people to look at, but in this field while I was looking. But I think look for mentors
Hmm.
and don't be scared to ask.
Hmm.
Um, there's something here that I didn't have back home in India, or I don't know if it is still there or happening there now, or doesn't happen. Job shadow.
Hmm.
You know, right, Gracies? You kind of just ask somebody
Hmm.
to be with them for a day or a week and see what happens before you
Yeah.
decide, right? Getting into that field. That's such an amazing thing. Job shadow. I love that.
Hmm.
That you can actually be with that person and see what they do.
Yeah.
So do that. That's one thing I think all students after their 12th graduation or grade 9 here, they can volunteer and Don't quote me on that, but I think there's such great opportunities as students uh,
Hmm.
in this country that we get, and we should utilize that, because back home we didn't have these things, like in, in grade 7, grade 9, how could you go and job shadow or volunteer somewhere? Nobody
Yeah.
talked about that. So here there's amazing opportunities for you to just go and even check out the field that you want to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds really interesting though, and I like that. The shadowing part. I think this is also um, not the same, but still in the same category where you reach out to people and do their information interviews just to learn about their day to day life, or just to learn about the job that they are doing, or just see that is that really something you think you are cut for.
I think, yes, exactly. Yeah. So also, if you want to do journalism, I think
Hmm.
reading is something that you have to have. You need to have interest in reading
Hmm.
and read about everything, anything around you. It's never going to harm you. You'll only learn. If not in journalism, then in some other field, just as a person also. So there's so much happening, and these days the information is right uh, on your screen. You can Google search anything, and it will
Hmm.
pop up on your screen, right? So the world, in some ways, is so easy. Um, so do that: reading, research, ask questions. Don't be
Hmm.
embarrassed or shy to ask questions. No question is ever stupid. Ask,
Hmm.
because
Yeah, 100%.
half of us don't do things because we didn't have the guts, or we didn't feel comfortable asking that question. It's like, oh my goodness, if only I had asked that question, I would know what to do now. And always find opportunities wherever you live. See what is happening around you, where when you go in person, that's another way to learn things. When you interact people with people, social interaction is another way, right? So as
Hmm.
a journalist, you need to be able to go and interact with anybody.
Hmm.
And you need to, the more you know about more people, more traditions, cultures, and countries and languages, the more easier your journey as a journalist will be, and more exciting, in fact.
So, Geetika, before we get into the final segment of the podcast, I wanted to also share with our listeners about your podcast, which is Geetika Ki Canadian Diary. Tell us where they can find it and what it is it about.
Gursis, Geetika.ca. People go and check Geetika.ca. They will see all the platforms, and they can check out our new episodes. As I said, it's all in conception stages. I'm also a mommy here. So, which means my full time job is generally with the two wonderful growing human beings at home. But so this is baby steps that I'm trying to take back, and then I'm thinking, I hope I can do something important in terms of bringing the issues out, and
Mhm.
followers and people who have liked me several years back doing the show will appreciate the topics, and
Mhm.
topics that we will be bringing and talking about. So my main focus is talk about immigrants who um, have trouble, although I always say the young generation that is coming nowadays is
Yeah.
much more smarter.
Mhm.
They are much more educated. They have already done their research. So they're way ahead of lots of immigrants when we came like
Mhm.
20, 30 years back. So they just have to go to geetika.ca, and all our
Mhm.
platforms are listed there, and they can go and listen to my new podcasts
Mhm.
on YouTube and Podbean and Facebook.
Mhm.
But as I said, it's very early um, to be promoting it. But
Mhm.
thank you for bringing it up, Gracis. I'm
Of
hoping people
course.
will
Yeah.
send me suggestions, feedback. I am looking for people's feedback and suggestions and topics. And feel free to connect with me. It is Geetika Ki Canadian Diary at gmail.com. Send me your ideas. Would love that.
Mhm. Well, I don't know what you're saying at the initial stages. I think you are putting the years of your experience into that podcast. I have listened to the first few episodes and I enjoyed them. And I think I'm looking forward to them more. And to all my listeners, the links to listen to the podcast and connect with Geetika can be found in the show notes. So now we're in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you. So, ready?
Yeah.
What's this one habit you adopted that has changed your life?
Listening.
Is there something you recently bought that you now regret?
Oh no, I don't think so. I'm a minimalist. I don't buy too much.
Okay. So, what's next on your bucket list?
Make sure my podcast reaches lots of immigrants, lots of South Asians, and lots of people.
Well, it surely will. So, who's your go to person when you feel stuck?
I go to books a lot when I feel stuck.
Okay.
I always feel books are such great teachers.
Mhm.
And I always find somebody else's experience matching, and then I see what did they do.
Mm.
Because as I said to you, Agurasis, I didn't have. It was a tough childhood, so I always had to look for things that were positive. So they were always my books, right?
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So, are there any movies that you like to watch over and over again?
Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, all time favorite.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I work in hospital setting, and I bridge the language gap between patients and doctor teams.
Mhm.
I wish I had a magic wand when I see kids, young children towards the end of their life.
Mm.
But I always feel there should be something that doesn't let that happen.
Mhm. If you could create one law that everybody has to follow, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, I could have a list of things
Okay,
there.
name two then.
I think honesty, because if you are by law
Mm.
have to be
Mm.
honest, you will do less mistakes on purpose or hurt other people or do wrong things, because you know what, you will have to agree to what you did, because you by law have to be honest about it, so you will not do wrong
Yeah,
things.
yeah. If you could eat one dish for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Rasmalai.
Hmm. Okay. So describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
I think I would define Canada as a dream,
Mm-hmm.
your dream, where you have to work towards it and it will come true
Hmm.
with persistence, honesty again in your dream and your work, and never giving up. I feel it is a place where um, you can dream and also achieve.
Hmm.
In some places you can dream, but you can't achieve because of so many other
Mm-hmm.
factors. But here, I feel generally the stories of your dreams will come true.
Love that. I love that answer. So finally, Geetika, if you could leave me with one piece of advice, what would it be?
I don't know what it would be. Gurasis, a young man doing so well, and an initiative that is already, I think, making you a better person every day, because you are hearing from so many people about their
Yeah.
life journeys. I think sometimes just exactly what you're doing, actually, just looking around and learning. Sometimes you don't even have to speak a word
Hmm.
to learn. You just have to look around and take it all in. And if you can take it all in and piece together the things and put good things in your own life journey, in your own steps, I think your life will be very different. But you're already doing it.
I love that answer. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thank you, Geetika, for being on the podcast. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
You welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Gracies.
Hey, listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.